Roxana.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Perfect.
for this one.
Okay, folks, we're just ready to go this evening.
I just gotta hit record, hang on.
Yep.
You do have to wait for
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to call to order this first regular meeting of the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Kincardine at 5 o'clock on January 14, the first meeting of 2026 in the council chambers at the Municipal Administration Office. Roll call this evening, Deputy Mayor Clark,
Present.
Councillor Blackwell,
Present.
Councillor Kavanaugh,
Present.
Councillor Hinchberger,
Present.
Councillor Prenger, Councillor Steinoff-Gray, Councillor Stewart,
Present.
Councillor Williams,
Present.
and I'd like to acknowledge the our CAO and other staff members that we have here in our meeting tonight. Deputy Mayor Clark, please.
We'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which includes the Chippewa of Nawash Unceded First Nation and the Chippewa of Saugeen First Nation, whose ancestors were the first to inhabit, care for, and live on this land. We recognize and deeply appreciate the contributions that Indigenous peoples have made both in caring for this land and shaping and strengthening this community, our province, and our country. As a public service organization, we are dedicated to learning and acknowledging Indigenous history and culture, and are committed to actions that move us towards a journey of truth, healing, and reconciliation with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, the Métis Nation of Ontario, and the historic Saugeen Métis.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Are there any amendments, additions, or deletions to or from the agenda proposed by council members? I'd like to remind all of you to disclose any pecuniary interest now or as it arises in the meeting and the general nature thereof. So we need a mover and seconder that the minutes of the council meetings held on November 26, 2025 regular, November 26, 2025 special, December 3, 2025, and December 10, 2025 be adopted as printed. Moved by councillors Stewart and Hinchberger. All in favor? That's carried. And then we're ready to go. Hello, Lauren. So I'd like to welcome Lauren Morris. She is the owner, operator, proprietor, and entrepreneur of the Cheeky Monkey. Cheesy Monkey. It's also cheeky, too. Cheeky, yes. Which operates at the Kincardine Airport. And she has recently opened a new Kachina at Gary Street, Aquila Cafe in Kachina, and she is presenting to council this evening for her proposal for the Kincardine Airport. So Lauren, the clerk likely indicated it's kind of a short time frame that you have here, but go ahead, we're excited to have you here tonight.
Okay, I'm just going to do a little mic check first. Hi, I do have a proposal. First, I guess I'm going to introduce myself. I've been running Cheesy Monkey for 7 years. I started out at Pine River Cheese, and we've been hosted by the municipality, of course, and the pilots through CYKM at the Kincardine Municipal Airport for 5 full running years. It is my understanding that, businesses aren't babies, but we do tend to get attached, and that's not just for myself, but for the community. So the Cheesy Monkey itself has become more of a service to the community than it has been for a profit for, myself personally. I did have to grow just based on bottom line, into full four-season working season, but there was other implications at the airport running a seasonal business that it could just be made better. I am going to request that maybe I have 7 minutes just because I'm a little nervous. Is that okay?
Talk quick, Lauren.
Okay, so the pilots do really enjoy having us there. We've grown a very strong rapport with the aviation community, and that's through tourism as well. So there is flight charters that run out of there, and people come just to be able to use the facilities that we have been providing through an uninsulated catering vehicle. So my intention would be to put a permanent infrastructure to replace the catering vehicle on site at the airport. So food services can create a central hub for commercialization at the airport, and this can attract tourism. It could be an actual event hosting location, and it can enhance commercial expansion for future development too. There's certainly the space for it. So as far as hospitality enhancements, I want a permanent concession. So this would lead to opportunity like a pilot lounge, grab and go options, and we can event cater both on-site and off-site. I did invest quite a lot of money in a permanent kitchen at my current kitchen underneath the cafe. So that's a 1,000 square foot space kitchen that I put in the basement there. And that original idea was to facilitate the prep for both the cafe catering services and the airport service in itself. So why I think the Cheesy Monkey, or I guess the parent company now would be Hey Lorenzo Hospitality, would be the corporation that would host all three groups, is that it's an uninsulated catering vehicle, and it needs to be a permanent structure, something new, something attractive, and something that will attract not only more seasoned workers, but more long-term workers. Currently, we're hosting 8 to 10 full-time employees per season, and we are stimulating the local economy in a 5.5-month working term by $260,000. So there is a lot to be said that, that stimulus will be lost in the local economy if the service isn't continued. And that's just not how business works, in my opinion. You want it to continue and you want it to grow, especially when the brand has so much loyalty. The rules are with the public health unit, of course, if I put a permanent structure, is that if the wheels come off the bus, there needs to be access to bathrooms. So my request from council is that in return, if either I lease the permanent structure and it's my building and I own it and put it on property, that the town would meet me halfway by putting in a parking lot and facilities that we would maintain. There's a lot of economic benefits to this. Tourism spending's already there. I've applied for my liquor license at the cafe and the additional endorsement to be able to have that at the airport too, with, of course, the town's permission. So additional revenue that you would see spiked on my annual basis would be from catering major events and participating in like Music in the Fields or concerts or local fairs and stuff like that. But that same revenue can actually be captured from alcohol service. And I think that is a service that is desirable to tourists, not only traveling by air, but just passersby. So, sorry. So I am requesting a second meeting where I would host an open book consultation if we were to decide to move forward with this. And I can show you the growth over a 5-year term. And from 2022 to 2025, I actually doubled the revenue in a 5-month working time. So Partnership, of course, there's many ways to look at a long-term commitment like this. I'm requesting at least 10 years for a permanent lease if I was to be the tenant and not the building owner for the structure that goes in there. But there's quite a few ways to approach this from a long-term business standpoint. I know that it's an election year, and I know that there's a lot to be said as to whether or not the airport may even stay locally owned or if it's going to be sold off. There's rumors that I've heard circulating through the pilots. But I do think that from a business standpoint, there's a lot of potential for, future entrepreneurs, not only myself, to turn the airport into something much, much more than what it is now. And that's it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Lauren.
Okay.
According to our procedure bylaw, of course, like we won't get into the negotiations or anything here, but councillors certainly have opportunity to ask questions to clarify any points you made or ponder what you've said, and then we can make a decision to refer Lauren and her proposal to staff for further consideration or take an alternative course. Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, I love your spirit, your entrepreneurship and everything else. That's a fairly abandoned area in the winter. I'm really worried about, that Highway 21 got closed 28 days last year. Have you taken that into consideration? Because that highway's closed quite a bit, and there's lots of traffic sometimes, but other times there's absolutely nothing. Did you do that in your business plan, the risk associated with that?
So we've actually encountered force majeure, I will call it, even when it's weather conditions in the past. So that was the road improvement that went on that essentially closed my business, although I was under contract to keep certain students employed during that time. So I did take a major loss. Doing a permanent structure wouldn't actually facilitate a 12-year or 12-month working year for this kind of establishment. I would think at best we may get 8 to 10 rather than 5.5, but still in that time, having a parking lot is going to completely remove the rain constraint, because right now the rain constraint already completely closes the business. So if I'm already seeing a 33% margin on a monthly basis, and 5 to 6 days of each month were essentially closed because of rain, you can definitely spread that out over the course of a year and it would be the same.
Thought about it, thank you.
Councillor Kavanagh, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the presentation. My question, do you have a general ballpark of how much of your traffic and patronage comes through the airport and how much is drive-by or to and from, like, Kincardine to Bruce Power or Kincardine to Tiverton?
So, ironically, the majority of my regular fan base is actually out-of-town residents that have been longtime local out-of-town, we'll call them, following for me since day one at Pine River Cheese. They are definitely 70% of my sales for sure. I can see my top 5 sellers. Online revenue has increased, and definitely adding Uber Eats and DoorDash has also increased things, but at the same time, nobody thinks of the Cheesy Monkey when it's raining, which is why I am proposing something almost entirely different, like this new structure. It would not only increase the quality of what we're able to prepare on site, but it would eliminate rain constraints completely, because people will still go to a Subway or McDonald's or whatever when it's raining, as long as they can pull up there and park and get out of their car and not have to trudge through the mud or stand under a little umbrella. Even curbside pickup would be huge, right? So
Thank you very much.
All right, so if I may, could I get a straw vote, refer Ms. Morris to staff for further conversation and consideration about her proposal? On support of that? Okay. Lauren, thank you so much for being here. Our staff member will be in contact with you to arrange some opportunity for you to meet with the department who would be responsible for progressing this proposal.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right, we move on to staff reports, and during one of my conversations with our CAO, I had indicated that I would like to afford council members opportunity to, just to identify an item. Sometimes our capital or operational projects that we have indicated for council, sometimes they don't show up on the agenda, there's no progress reports. And I just wanted to afford council opportunity, to indicate, here's a priority of mine that I want to make sure that we consider before the end of the term, before we get farther along. So just for example, I'll start the example, then I'll go to Deputy Mayor Clark, and we'll go around the table. So my thing that I want to make sure that we move progress this year is our community improvement plan contributions to the businesses, CIPs. We changed an amount in the budget. It is with the intent of spurring our economy through housing or through businesses. I think CIPs is something that I am excited about seeing our progress this year. I'll afford each one of you one priority. You can do your second as soon as you start the third, then I'll go, just a minute. No, that's too many. We just need one or two. Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Mayor. I should say that when this was initially raised, I wasn't sure what the outcome had been hoped for, but I spoke with you, and I think it was really just to say what in our last term we would like to see done. And I know that I know that staff is working hard on a number of our outstanding issues, and it's not really about prioritizing per se. For me, I would certainly welcome and like to see the McPherson Park accessibility completed. I think that's an important addition to our community, to have an all-inclusive, accessible park for the children. So I preface my remarks with saying I don't think for a moment your intention is to pick priorities, but just to say what's kind of close and dear to our heart.
Councillor Kavanaugh?
Thank you very much. Always the keener, I identified 9 items that I really thought were priorities that should get done. I've compiled them in a letter and submitted them to the clerk, and they will be included in the correspondence at the subsequent meeting. I have been informed. But if we're going to highlight one tonight, I would say I would like to see the ladders on the pier completed before the start of summer safely.
Councillor Williams?
Thank you. If I were to pick one, I'd probably make it a little bit more, less specifically around, I'd like to see us had made progress on building our relationships with our developers and our companies and having a plan in place for commercial and industrial property development, understanding the barriers that exist and what the next steps are. I think we made some pretty good progress on residential development, but I think there's a lot more work to do on commercial development. And at minimum, I'd like to kind of make sure that we have a plan and a good relationship and a good path forward.
Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through your chair. With or without, I wore the wrong glasses tonight. I'd like to see us expedite actions towards the development of a below-market housing project on municipal land. This aligns with provincial priorities under OREG 580/22, and it was a main driver for the province introducing strong mayor powers. It aligns with priorities of the county. Bruce County Council was introduced to new 10-year housing targets for the county at its meeting in January. The target for the Lakeshore region is a little over 2,000 units, with 585 falling in non-market categories from transitional housing to non-market rental and ownership. And in that presentation that you probably sat in on, under who needs to be involved, the report called on local governments to unlock land, offer incentives, and fast-track approvals. Some neighboring municipalities, they're already ahead of us in this regard. And I also think doing so would strengthen our advocacy to obtain support from the province on some of our other priorities by helping them with their priorities. The MOK's Housing Action Plan that was approved in the previous term included an item 3.5, continue to explore partnerships with community groups, non-for-profit organizations, businesses, and/or private developers to create more affordable and attainable housing. The strategic action list that the CAO supplied us today under strong economy and healthy growth had an item, number 50, council approval to sell municipally owned land for affordable housing development, and also to advocate to the county, province, and federal government to financially contribute to a potential future housing project. There was already direction provided to staff to sever a southern portion of the W.E. Thompson lands and issue a request for expression of interest for the construction of a housing project on that parcel of land in November/or December 2024, with funding allocated from the Affordable Housing Reserve Fund. So this does meet the criteria where the priorities that we were asked to bring up, whether they were funded or not. Now, with the inclusion of provisions in the updated W.E. Thompson lease agreement, acknowledging that the MOK may develop a portion of the site at any time and that the MOK can assume control of the whole property after 5 years without penalty, a pathway exists to move forward. And given how fast things happen or don't happen, I think the time is now to ensure that we can help contribute towards achieving those county goals for housing.
Councillor Stewart.
No.
He brought it up, so just very quickly, this is much shorter. I won't be on council on the next term, so I'd like to see us produce a conceptual plan for near-term and long-term future use of the Blue Water Trailer Park lands. The current agreement exists, winds down in October 2027, and given that the next term of council will begin later this year, the first thing they'll have to deal with the budget. It doesn't give them a lot of time to address this issue after being sworn into office, and I don't really feel comfortable about leaving them this in this state. There, that's number 2. Thanks.
Councillor Stewart, please.
I can't believe it. You stole 2 and 4 from me, but both of them are very good. And number 3, unfortunately, we're going to talk about the strata tonight, so it's fine. So the one and the only one I really have is we got to talk about water. We have, the Tiverton water thing. We have basically the Bruce Power water thing. We got a pipe going out. This is a huge cost. I mean, we're looking at $10 to $20 million. And this term, and at least for the next 6 months, we're going to have to really take a look at this and figure out how we're going to finance it, whether we can get grants and everything else. But, if we can actually put our thoughts around it and start to think about the financing of all 3 projects, I think it will give a huge plus to the next council, because you're dropping $10 to $20 million in their lap, and we just don't have that kind of money right now. Thank you.
Councillor Pranger, please.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to see an approved long-term plan for the airport that keeps the airport remaining as a municipal asset. Seeing some process improvements, though, that also increase the ROI on that asset for us. And the delegation tonight fits right into that, so that was perfect. And I actually love a bunch of the things that have already been said, so I won't repeat anything, but then I guess my other one would be that I'd like to see a prioritization of some of the initiatives under our welcoming and vibrant community umbrella of our strategic objectives. Prioritization of that and movement on some of the key ones at the top of that list, so that we're not leaving the next council who's coming in soon with all these initiatives, like there's 30 of them or something under that heading. So a good plan for those, including the waterfront, trails, things like that.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. I'm a bit of like a keener as well, so I had 4 at one point, but I will
I will do two. So part of what I felt the budget really highlighted for us this year was two key buckets. One was safety-related enhancements, and the other was service-related enhancements. And so specifically, there's two that I wanted to pull out. Many of the ones have kind of already been claimed anyway. But one thing that I would really like to see is the growth and maturation of our fire department. We are bringing on additional staff. We have additional regulations coming on board indicated by the province. So I'd really like to see, I'm really looking forward to seeing that department flourishing. The other service, it was mentioned, but under the services and the enhancement, I'm really unbelievably thrilled and excited that progress is being made at McPherson Park, and I'm grateful to the community partners we have from Jumpstart and Canadian Tire locally that are going to make that possible, and I'm just very much looking forward to playing there this fall.
Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Yes, I mentioned this before through you, Chair, that Councillor Steinhoff-Gray couldn't be here tonight, and as contingency, she left two with me if I could share them. It's up.
As long as they're both like 5 words long.
Number one is the Tiverton water system upgrade, particularly how it's going to be funded. And that fell under one of the strategic actions in the category of strong economy and healthy growth. And the other one was the Tiverton Community Center, and that also fell under strategic actions under welcoming and vibrant community. Those were her two.
Thank you. Okay, we move on to second staff report, use of corporate resources for election purposes policy. Need a mover and seconder that council approve the use of corporate resources for election purposes policy as presented. Moved by councillors Blackwell and Williams. Are there any questions? Councillor Blackwell, please.
No questions, I guess, just a comment that I really appreciate this policy coming forward and the way that it's been worded. One of the things it talks about is use of municipal facilities for events. To the best of my knowledge, we don't have a booking system. So I do have a question, actually. We don't have a booking system for parks. If someone doing a campaign, it won't be me because I'm not running, but if someone's doing a campaign and they want to host an event in a park, how would that be handled under this policy?
Through you,
Yeah.
Mayor. So we do have a system for booking our parks, so it would go through that system.
Okay.
So when you call, they will book a park for you, and so they would need to call, book a park, and make sure that it was known that that's what they were using it for.
Even if there's no cost for
Even if there's no cost for the park.
All in favor of the policy? And that's carried. Next is request for direction on the short-term rental accommodation licensing. We need a mover and seconder. Whereas council directed staff to explore the implementation of short-term rental accommodation licensing in the municipal accommodation tax. Whereas council directed staff to revise the proposed short-term rental accommodation licensing bylaw to include at least two tiers. Whereas staff have provided report Strategic Initiatives 2026-03 with a summary of consultation findings and options for council consideration. Now therefore be it resolved that council directs staff to proceed with one of the options regarding the short-term rental accommodation licensing, and I will afford one of the council members opportunity to put forward one of the options, whether it's option 1, 2 tiers, at least 2 tiers, with council providing clear direction on what the outcome of the bylaw is, whether it's noise, housing, income, whether it's option 2, which is single tier licensing, option 3, discontinue the conversation, or option 4, another option. So I'd like to put the motion forward. We'll have the conversation, and we will generate one of the options as we move along. Councillor Blackwell.
Thank you.
And the seconder is,
No, she's going to name the option.
He might not agree with
No, he's not.
Yeah, he might not agree with me. I was going to choose option 1, proceed with the STRA licensing bylaw that includes 2 or more tiers, although I think we'll come back to that in discussion, with council providing clear direction on the issue the policy is attempting to address.
And seconded by Councillor Hinchberger. Manager, would you like to comment, or do you just want to wait for some questions to address this?
Through you, Mayor Craig, I'd like to say a couple of comments if I
Yeah,
may.
go ahead.
Thank you. As you know, council directed staff to investigate the short-term rental accommodation licensing as well as the municipal accommodation tax. And our work on this journey started in February 2025 on both short-term rentals and the MAT tax. And over the course of the year, we've had lots of engagement with both motel operators, short-term rentals, the tourism sector, the public, et cetera. And in all of the research that we did, we also talked with the municipalities, and it was really stressed that whatever, like we do around the MAT tax, that there is this fairness perspective as well as the sustainability perspective, that we include short-term rental licensing as part of the MAT tax. So that way then visitors staying overnight, they create the similar impacts if they're in a short-term rental accommodation or if they're in a hotel. And regardless of where they stay, they do have impacts on our roads, beaches, trails, waste collection, emergency services, et cetera. And so that's partly where we had come back to council to say, let's, in step order, put these short-term rental accommodations in place and then move to the municipal accommodation tax. And so that was approved on August 27th. And so then at November 12th meeting, staff presented the draft bylaw, which we attached in your report on a sort of a single tiered system. And I want to acknowledge that Roxana, Jennifer, Guy, Shelby, Dwayne also helped with the development of this bylaw. And then Kim has been super helpful as she's joined on ranks as well. And so we presented that bylaw. Council then directed us to, at the November meeting, to think about the tiered system. And so staff did start to, and if you can change the slide, that's great, awesome. So staff did start to research, what does this mean for tiered system? And we wanted to dig in deeper, and so we did 3 different pieces of work. Number 1, we contacted 11 municipalities, some that were suggested by council at that meeting, that had a tiered system, and we wanted to learn best practices and what their tiers were all about. We worked with Granicus, which was the third-party service that we had recommended to implement the administration of the system. We also had McSweeney, who were the consultants who did the financial forecast on the MAT, revise the MAT based on exempting some or all of the short-term rentals. And so that way it gave us a bit of a flavor of how much forecasted revenue we would have for the municipal accommodation tax. And so through this research, we did identify both benefits and challenges of a tiered system, and we really wanted, we as staff didn't feel we could develop a bylaw or revise the bylaw on a tiered system without direction of council of which way you wanted to go with the tiered system. You can change to the next slide. So the first part was we did talk, as we mentioned, with the third-party service, and they really said that they needed us to give us a really good sort of picture of what the tiers were in order to give us a revised price quote. And then also around the complexity of how to administer the tiered system will depend upon what the tiers are. And so that was something that we discussed with them, and they had recommended that we have council identify the vision that the licensing is trying to address, or the issue the licensing is trying to address, in order to set up the administration effectively, and also for us to give you a really good idea of what the cost of administering the program is. The second piece of work was to revise the financial forecast, which I had mentioned, and we included that in your attachment. You can switch the slide there for me, thanks. And we included that revised financial forecast, which is on the next slide, and we've included what, with short-term rentals included in the municipal accommodation forecast, as well as without short-term rentals. And so you can see from that, it does decrease. The difference there is $63,000 to $107,000 difference if we don't include the short-term rentals. And it's really important to note whatever amount we do get through the municipal accommodation tax, that's divided 50-50 between the municipality and a nonprofit tourism entity, which we would need to create, called a destination management organization. So half of that would go to them and half of it would come to the municipality. So out of all of that research, the next slide is really the benefits of a tiered system. And so we did talk to the municipalities around the tiered model, and they did talk about some benefits that really helped support some of our housing objectives, because it really helps us to track what of the housing market is for short-term rentals. And so it really helps us then to design policies that align with that, because we'll have a better understanding and be able to track the rentals. There also was additional benefits cited around the better alignment between risk and regulation with the tiers, as they allow the municipality to match requirements and fees to the actual impact of the different short-term rentals. So higher risk properties, for example, large unhosted homes can have stricter rules, while low-risk hosted rentals, where you're actually in the home or on the property, helps avoid unnecessary burdens. Some of the challenges that we found as we did some of this research, it does create a higher administration complexity, because managing the multiple tiers requires more staff time for intake, review, verification, renewal, and enforcement, which can slow down processing and may create additional needs for contracting. And we did hear that from Granicus, who has worked with tiered and non-tiered systems. It's also more expensive to run a single-tiered model than a single-tiered model, and when talking to the municipalities, they say that it is higher administration, it is higher enforcement, so knowing that going into it is really important. We also heard confusion from operators understanding where they fit within the different tiers, and so lots of communication needed around that, which isn't impossible, because that's definitely something we can do, but it does lead to errors, and it does lead to enforcement challenges, because it just adds that level of complexity, and how do you enforce, and how do you sort of understand what the tiers are, and if they're applying for what's being said they're applying for. So then, just some examples of tiers we did talk to, and these were the four most common that we saw. And again, they were driven by the policy or the issue that the municipality was trying to address. So the main four categories were hosted, hosted versus unhosted residents, a primary residence or a secondary residence, the number of bedrooms the rental has, and the number of days per year the accommodation is available. And so, for example, if you think about tiers, could be the number of bedrooms the rental has, or a hosted property if noise complaints or large or unhosted properties are having these big parties. That is a way to solve or try and address the issue. So again, it's really getting to what is the issue that the municipality is trying to address. And so after the research, and staff didn't really feel like they had enough information from council to sort of write the bylaw to a specific tiered system. So that's why we're coming back to you. I know it feels like we're dragging our heels, but really we want clarity from council around the direction of the specific outcomes you wish to achieve. And then based on that, based on the directions, we're hoping that we would come back to you then with the required resources to administer a tiered model and present that at a future meeting. And that'll also help us identify the budget that's needed to administer this type of system, if it is tiered system that that council wishes to proceed with. So I guess back to the last slide there, really that's the question that staff are asking, is the specific outcomes council wishes to achieve, so we can develop the bylaw to fit the requirements that council's trying to address.
Thank you, Manager. So I'm going to afford opportunity for questions, of course, and as you were able, there were the examples that strategic initiatives have put forward regarding the various communities who have various tiered examples of short-term rental accommodation licensing. If you could provide, like if you have a question, that's fine. Or if you could afford your input, and just so you know what that looks like. When I had a look at the different examples, if I had to make a recommendation about what sort of example we would follow, I would be supportive of either the Lambton Shores or the South Bruce Peninsula. Because it is simple, particularly the Lambton Shores example. If we're working towards cost neutral implementation. But I think the example where it is hosted versus unhosted actually addresses some of that concerns about providing housing back into the longer-term market and some of the noise issues. So, from my perspective, if you're staying with somebody, you're not going to be generating the noise that you might be if you were in an unhosted communities or an unhosted house. So from my perspective, that's would be the example of the tiered system that I would support. But that's, as always, for other councillors to comment on as well. Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you very much. I have pages of notes on this, so I'm going to try and keep my thoughts fairly brief to start with. In terms of just providing guidance or direction on where I think or what kind of tiers I think, I can certainly provide a lot of my background thoughts. But in general, some of the research that I've done and some of the thinking about this that I've done is I want to really try to balance our existing character as a seasonal tourism community, those who have cottages, who rent them out to family and friends, those who rent them out to, repeat visitors, those people who are coming to our community. I want to really respect that, while also recognizing the impact and challenges it's having when we see residential housing being used for more commercial-based purposes. So when I was looking at how I would kind of delineate potential tiers, I looked at intensity. Intensity was kind of a word used, I think it's by Georgian Bay. And when I was looking at intensity, I looked at the CRA guidelines of when a property would be considered a change of use under their guidelines. And they specified 60 nights a year is commonly referred to as a delineator from a occasional or incidental use to a more income producing use. And so when I would look at the tiers, I would look at a very low level, if any at all, regulation around people doing something under 60 nights a year, which is half of the summer, using, being able to use a secondary property or using your primary property if you're traveling, versus over 60 nights a year, it starts to become a intentional commercial type usage at the intensity level. So that was kind of the delineators that I was looking at, and happy to speak a bit more about that, but I don't want to hog the whole floor.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Are we only talking about, through you, Chair, option 1, and that's it,
At this time.
at this time?
That is the motion that's on the floor, but there is opportunity in the midst of that to say why you would support it or why you would not support it. That's the nature
Okay.
of debate.
Okay, because I do have another option, but I guess I'll have to wait until we vote on this one. But I can't support option 1. I think this is complexity. I think, Lori, you've done a great job. I've been reading all the emails and everything, the other municipalities. I'm looking around to our type of business. We have a lot of people that work for Bruce Power Contractors, and they're not even going to be influenced by this because they're always 30 days and over. They're renting places for 30 days and over. So who you're going to impact is really the tourist. Now, if you decide not to charge anyone who's only going to rent it for 60 days, there's not going to be enough revenue. This is going to take incredible amount of administration cost, and it's not really going to prove out. I think that, I don't know if we really have the community support on this. I know we don't have community support on the hotel at all, the maps. So, what I'd recommend, but, maybe it's time we defer this and maybe actually make this an election sort of type of thing and let the community speak if they want to move forward. I think this is going to end up costing us more money than the benefit. With the safety thing, we can easily ramp up robust bylaw to safety and everything. It's quite easy to do. This is a program. I don't think we have the staff or the power right now to really implement it, and I would defer this. Thank you.
I'll come back to you. Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, through you. I have a question and then a comment. Thanks for the research. It's really thorough and well done. I mean, especially the work around the comparisons of other communities. perhaps not a fair question. In your research of other communities, did you come across any information on the net revenue that municipalities are receiving using a two-tiered program?
Through you, Mayor Craig, not the net revenue, but the caution that it costs more than you think, and that it is more in a tiered system.
Thank you. I know that when this originally came about, I was certainly interested in following the process to understand more the benefits, because I do think that having an STRA in place and in turn potentially a MAT tax could have potentially, if done right and if we were in the right environment, benefit us. But through the course of the research, and appreciate all of the work that you've done getting us to this point today, it became very clear to me within the past 6 months in particular that the administrative burden of operating a program like this and the costs associated with it significantly outweigh any benefit that we would receive through having an STRA in place. And then the complexity of the two-tiered system makes it even more, in my opinion, ineffective in achieving what the desired outcomes might be. And similar to Councillor Stewart, I'd say given the significant both administrative and financial burden that this program will place on our municipality, I do think it's best that it's the decision of a new council, because the expectation will be that we're committing a new council to essentially have to find potentially a significant amount of revenue to cover these expenses related to this program. And just one more point around that, like, I know that there are concerns with short-term rentals, but I think that we have policies and procedures in place through our bylaws that we can more effectively use to be able to manage those issues.
Councillor Henchberger, please.
Thank you through your chair. Lori, if you could pull up the slide in your presentation, the tiered system, the benefits slide. Okay. One of your questions you asked were what were some of the outcomes that council would be looking for, and I'm just one member of council, and I had sort of two of them. One, if you have a desire longer term to introduce a municipal accommodation tax, this is a prerequisite. So one of the outcomes of having short-term rental licensing would be to keep open the option of introducing a municipal accommodation tax. The other would be to manage the growing impacts on the that have come with the proliferation is probably an exaggeration, but the growth of the short-term rental industry that I don't hear any of my colleagues around the table disputing. One thing I would say is that there is talk about we have mechanisms in place to do bylaw enforcement. Bylaw enforcement's never been a revenue neutral thing as well, so to think that we can accomplish licensing or regulation of short-term rental and it isn't going to have a cost if we do stuff differently than we're doing now, I just don't think that's actually true. I also think too we have to be mindful of that we can fall into the trap about when we talk about what's good for the corporation versus what's good for the community, because sometimes they conflict with each other, and really what we're here for is what's good for the community. So you have the tiered system benefits of here. What I had managed, maybe I should have used my words better in the last meeting when I referred to a tiered system. In my mind, I have essentially a one-tier system, but there are a lot of exemptions. Not a lot of exemptions. As Councillor Blackwell mentioned, you basically exempt based on intensification below a certain level. And if you exempt people from that, and they're exempt from registering, they're exempt from inspections, all the costs associated with administering that, from my perspective, largely disappear. So if you're under such a system as well, you would support housing objectives. You still address neighborhood-specific concerns because, in my opinion, that the potential for those concerns is probably proportional to how often a business is, or a short-term rental is operating. And there is alignment between risk and regulation. You're regulating the higher risk, the higher uses, especially when you get into the cases where you have people that are operating them that don't actually even live there. Okay. If you could go to the second slide, which had to do with the challenges. So the administrative complexity, I don't understand how, if you have a two-tier system, or, sorry, it's semantics. If you have a two-tier system where your lower tier is basically exempt for everything, or you have a one-tier system where you have people that are exempt for everything, to me, you've reduced administrative complexity because there's fewer property owners who are going to fall under the umbrella of the regulation or the bylaw. This lowers program costs. The fact, if you clearly defined your exemptions, I don't see how this leads to greater risk for confusion for operators. And when you talk about enforcement challenges, there would be fewer enforcement challenges. So those are my thoughts.
Councillor Kavanaugh, please.
Thank you very much. As we look into the details of this, we see that it's not easy to execute, and we see that it's not going to be pretty no matter which way we divide it up, if it's with under 60 days on the CRA's commercial divide, or if we do it on like managing, you're renting a room in your house so you can afford to keep paying your mortgage, right? And I don't think the intention is to hurt those people. But we all around this table know that housing is a significant issue within our municipality. When we were campaigning in 2022, that was the number one issue by far and away. Any polling we've seen coming out of significant industry leaders like Bruce Power show that housing and healthcare were 1-2 for the longest time in terms of importance. And when we came in here, I think a lot of us had good hopes or high hopes that we would be able to positively impact local housing in a good way. But as things have unfolded and events have happened, it feels personally kind of frustrating to look around and see that despite council's best efforts, we've actually made very little progress on the housing file to help anyone. As a high-level summary, one of my colleagues basically said we've managed to sell a few properties that were surplus to municipal needs. Our attempt at something to revitalize the core and jumpstart with W.E. Thompson got tied up in negotiations, and in my mind has effectively been sidelined or put on a back burner for 4 to 6 years while that runs out. Certainly not in this term of council, I could say. And so I look at the short-term registry and some of the effects that it's had on some of the neighboring municipalities, and we look at long-term how that is affected as a housing policy. We know in Collingwood, for example, that in rolling it out, it actually encouraged people that were buying houses and renting them out by the room or short-term rental. When this came out, owners said, this isn't worth it. I'm going to shift back into renting for more than the 28 days to get out of this field. And so you open up your housing. When we were talking about the budget, Councillor Stewart mentioned several times the rise of the K-shaped economy, where a select portion of people are doing very well, and a select portion of people in the economy are struggling hard as it's ever been. Well, we may personally disagree on who's in what basket there. We can both agree that the service industry and our workers that don't work necessarily in the nuclear field are really struggling to find affordable housing and housing accommodations. This action, beyond just increasing safety, and I do think there is a safety issue here that needs to be addressed, also is a signal to the community and pushes housing and housing policy in a way that's, I would argue, what council's role is by setting policy in a direction back towards helping the people that need it most within our community.
Councillor Pranger, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I think for me, when this first came up, the biggest issue was safety. It had been brought up by our fire chief that when short-term rentals aren't licensed, we don't know how many people could possibly be in there. If there happened to be a fire, there could be 6, there could be 0. No one would ever know because it was never regulated. Things like this. And to me, having grown up here and worked on site, safety culture is like a top thing on my mind. And so that was a big impact for me. And I know community members have other issues. And so to me, those were also side benefits, like the noise control, issues with properties where the owners are not on site and having better better oversight of those. So I struggle because I also don't want to overburden individuals or property owners or business owners whose properties are basically set up for short-term rental and can't really be turned into a long-term rental, say a beachfront that is only a 3-season cottage, or a near beach property that's set up for vacationers. I don't want to make it so cumbersome for them that they can no longer afford to rent out their cottage when they're not there, that type of thing. And as it was brought up by business owners before, there's some instances where they are already inspected and we would be duplicating work and over regulating. So I'm not opposed to moving forward with a policy or that addresses all those issues. So I think exclusions are a great idea for certain instances. I think a tiered system, personally, for me, I would like to see it based on intensity and whether the property owner is on site or not.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
So thank you. So I think Councillor Kavanagh brought up a good point when we speak as well about the workforce, local workforce. I know we talk a lot about the workforce for the nuclear industry, but the other is that our tourism industry also relies on a workforce, and I know that that workforce is probably the workforce that's struggling the most. And so increasing anything that we can do to increase rental stock and expand options. There have been, studies directly pointing to areas with low rental vacancy, which we have, and high short-term rental numbers. That does put obviously a strain. Another conversation we talk a lot about is equity, and in this case, equity for me looks at the regulatory hurdles that commercial operators are being put through. So, people running hotels and motels, and, they've told us we're not full in the winter. Obviously, there's some flex there, and they're regulated by things like the Innkeepers Act and the Hotel Registration Guest Act. Meanwhile, longer-term renters are protected by the Rental and Tenancy Agency. And so I think, again, as Councillor Prenger said, that kind of safety and security element is missing. I think if we were to do something like based on intensity and we were to look at the lower tier, I think there would be options to say there's a very low charge and there's very much a education-focused initiative that if they were to register and get a license, that it would be focused on how do you make your place safe, how do you ensure that you're doing all of the things you need to do, as opposed to the more intensive registration that would be, I think, a necessary burden on those running a more commercial operation so that they're actually meeting the intensity that they're providing. So again, I'm not trying to overcomplicate. I'm trying to actually say, how do we look at that bottom element of the folks that have been doing this forever, that has been part of our community forever. This is something that's always existed in our community as cottage rentals. And I really don't want that to disappear or risk going underground or anything like that. The one other thing maybe I'll suggest or say as well is if every short-term rental accommodator was required to get a license, whether that was for the lower intensity, it was a very small application fee. There are opportunities then to put the reverse onus on the platforms to do some of the initial enforcement. So the platforms would only allow certain licenses to list for a certain number of days, and it allows you to cross-reference to make sure that people have applied for the correct license, as opposed to all of it being on our staff to do the enforcement.
Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. This is an item that I have really been on the fence about for quite a long period of time. The issues I've struggled with is one, the timing in the term, I think, which has been raised, and to perhaps the point that Councillor Kavanagh has raised. I don't think anybody here would say housing's not an issue. I think the issue has been how do we resolve it, or how do we take steps in resolving it? And I think this has been a great report that has come back to council. And I think part of it was to try and understand what the problem was that council wanted to solve. I hear still a bit of a variety. One is safety, and I understand the thought process behind how this mitigates perhaps issues of safety. I don't know if that's a problem. Like, I don't know if we're solving problems that actually exist. So that has been one of my concerns, is creating administrative burdens that perhaps don't actually get to the root problem. Is safety a concern, or is safety an actual problem with regards to short-term rentals? I haven't heard of that. I don't know. I haven't heard of that from residents. Maybe it is. But I do worry a little bit that we start to have this fear-mongering that there has been a problem with Airbnbs or something of that nature, and as a result, we need to implement this. So I think we have to be careful we're not trying to solve problems that don't really exist, or haven't made themselves, I guess, readily known. So that has been one of my concerns. The second one is that of does this meet, or does this solve the issue with housing? Clearly, it doesn't resolve the entire issue with housing. I appreciate that. But does this help with the issue with housing? And the answer is I don't know. And that's where I've been on the fence with it. I don't know what the answer to that is. And then when we have the issue where I appreciate Councillor Hinchberger and Councillor Blackwell have taken a great deal of time in both trying to, I guess, figure out a way that it doesn't adversely impact individuals who really are just trying to make ends meet, so to speak. And that in itself perhaps creates a little bit of complexity, and I appreciate, Councillor Hinchberger, your viewpoint of sort of consider it in a different fashion, a single tier and almost an exemption, so to speak, which may make it visually easier to recognize. But for me, where I have sat, and I'm not opposed to this idea at all, I think it's just been trying to understand where the pieces are and whether we resolve the issues that we're trying to resolve, or whether we resolve issues that aren't particularly issues at this time. I don't have an answer, so I don't know really what my way forward is tonight, but I just wanted to share that.
Our CAO, please.
Thank you, and I just provide this as information, recognizing that I have not been part of these conversations, but I shared with Lori today an article from Collingwood today, which was reflecting on their experience with MAT and short-term rental licensing. Collingwood, I think, as you're aware, has a Class A license for B&Bs, a Class B license for residents to rent their entire single detached dwelling if it's their principal residence, and a Class C license that permits property owners to rent an additional residential unit on the same lot, provided they are living in the principal residence. Collingwood used to have a complete prohibition on short-term rentals in the town, and that just meant that they had 400 short-term rentals that weren't licensed. So under the new rules, up to 200 licenses for short-term rentals were to be handed out annually on a first-come, first-served basis. And over the course of the year, town staff informed council that 23 short-term accommodation licenses had been issued, and an additional 8 applications under review. Staff acknowledged that the uptake on licenses so far had been very slow, but they hoped that applications would come in as the program gained traction. It's an interesting article because it speaks to the experience of the people who are trying to actually get licensed and what that has been like for them. And this is where I think it will be a real undertaking for staff to do this and do it well. The concerns that people had about, it's not even about the cost of the license, but more about the administration of it, the complexity, the paperwork, knowing what information they were supposed to provide and getting it all filled out. They were I haven't seen the Collingwood applications, but there were a lot of concerns raised in the article from folks about how they found it very burdensome and frustrating. So I just put that out there because it came out today, and it just speaks to one community who's been at this for some time, their experience. Thanks.
I appreciate the urgency, but there's a couple of questions that need to be posed yet, and there's a couple of councillors that need to ask a question yet, I think. In the proposals that you have presented, once again, it's okay, I'll come back to you, it's okay. There have been various opinions presented regarding intensity, which is a valid criteria, exemptions, which is valid criteria, whether it's primary or secondary or hosted or not, you've got all those up there. And each one of the municipalities has a list of requirements of the application, the licensee applicants. Have you decided, has there been any presentation to council or staff thought about, what exactly are the requirements, or is that dependent upon the decision that council will make tonight?
Through you, Mayor Craig, in November 27th meeting, we proposed the draft bylaw, and we have all the requirements within there that short-term rentals would have to supply or prove or put forward in order to get a short-term license. So, and it's very common to the other municipalities. The only one that would be different was Lambton Shores, who exempts short-term rentals in their own home kind of thing. So, but it's very similar to the other municipalities.
Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, it wasn't a question, it was a comment. I think I'd like to address the safety issue aspect of it. We just gave approval in the 2026 budget to hire a deputy fire chief and convert a fire prevention officer from a part-time to a full-time position. I'm assuming that when we're talking about whether there's a safety issue or not, we're generally referring to fire. So rather than, try to, none of us are experts here, we'd let the fire prevention people within the municipality tell us whether there's an issue or not. And if there's an issue, it's something they should be addressing, whether or not it's licensed under short-term rentals or not. So to include it in a discussion about whether you go forward with a short-term rental policy, I think it really should be out. So if there's a concern about, say, the lower intensification people, that you exempt them from the thing, and that we're not maybe covering the issues with them with respect to safety, we should be covering them regardless of whether they were in it or not. So leave them out.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thanks. So I just kind of have a couple of follow-up thoughts. One, I appreciate the CAO bringing up Collingwood and some of the maybe perhaps the examples of operators. One of the things that I was reflecting on, especially when I was looking at intensity, was what would it take to go through a zoning change or a change of use from residential to commercial? And I would expect that it would be quite a bit more onerous than what is being asked of within this license. I also think it's important to hear what the Mayor of Collingwood and the Council of Collingwood have had to say about their bylaw, which is that their intention was to eliminate year-round rentals completely, which is always an option on the table, and is what has been done in most locations across the province. And so, yes, they've had a lot fewer applications, but they're also seeing an incredible turnover of previous short-term rentals that were unregulated and operating outside the bounds, returning to the long-term rental market. And their comments at council were that they felt it was a resounding success. So I recognize that it's a burden on potential operators, and I think that that's a valid perspective to hear, but I think when I'm designing policy, that's perhaps not the only perspective that I want to make sure that I'm hearing.
Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, through you. I did want to make a comment around safety as well, because I hadn't acknowledged that in my first remarks. Certainly not being dismissive of safety issues, but my concern is largely that the STRA is not necessarily the best policy tool that we need to use to resolve safety issues. A fellow councillor talked a little bit about education and awareness raising, and I think through our enhanced fire services department, we could do that. We could provide some education and awareness raising campaign related to safety for short-term accommodations without even having to implement a policy like this. So I think that we have other tools that we can use to be able to acknowledge that if safety is an issue, how to resolve it.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you, and through you, I think there's been a robust discussion on this. There's still incredible amount of unknowns here, and I think everyone would agree, and that's why some people are sitting on the fence, some people are for, and some people are against it. But I think it's time at least to have a vote. I'm not saying the vote's going to cancel this, but it's just a vote on option one, correct? Thank you.
So we have the motion on the floor that council direct staff to proceed with option one, which is a system with 2+ tiers, council providing clear direction on the outcomes.
Recorded vote, please.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Yeah. So I think from my perspective, I'm hoping that the conversation has been robust, but the clear direction I would provide would be a delineation based on intensity above 60 days and below 60 days. And the direction that I would like to see is as little administrative burden on that below 60 days as possible. That's not a very good motion, but
Are you changing the motion? Well,
no, they're asking it for more detail within the motion.
So if we go back to the report provided by the manager, each one of those municipalities, even the one with tiers, there were multiple iterations of what the criteria was for the applicant. And I believe that that's what the manager has asked for and what we have not provided yet to this point. So whether it is about intensity, the 60 days, or whether it's just the difference between hosting when you're in the house versus not hosting. I'm not even sure I know the, if we are to pass this bylaw, pass this motion, we will identify what the criteria are. Okay, so there are 4 options. We know that if we pass option 1, that the next conversation that we're going to have, like immediately, is what is the criteria? Is it going to be intensity? Okay. Is it going to be non-hosting? This is just we want different tiers. This option identifies that we'll have at least 2 tiers, and the council will provide clear direction on what the criteria will be, what the impetus is for our direction, whether is it safety or housing or dollars or what is it?
So sorry, is it 2 tiers that we're 2 or more?
2, it said in the recommendation,
2 or more tiers.
2 or more.
Okay.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, could I actually revise maybe the motion that, because the options are to do one with 2 or more tiers, to pass the bylaw that was before, or to not do it at all, or something else. Is it possible to just say that we would like to discuss revisions? We'll provide staff revision, like recommendations for revision to the bylaw, and we can have that discussion, whether it's 1 tier with exemptions or 2 tiers afterwards?
Okay, so option 1 is the option that has been presented. There is a motion on the floor that we direct staff to proceed with option 1.
That's what was on the table.
That's what I was thinking. We voted on it.
We already voted on that. What was brought?
What was the, sorry.
So there is a path forward on this. We're establishing that that's the option we're going. If that is what we pass, then we will immediately determine what the criteria is regarding the option that we pass. Councillor Kavanaugh, please.
Sorry, if I can challenge that sort of as a point of procedure, I think this would be the equivalent of having the same vote twice. If that was already the motion that was passed, and I wasn't here, but I re-listened to it. So I'm of the opinion that was already direction and decided by council, and the actual determination that needs to be made now is what are those criteria? But I defer to our clerk.
Thank you. I need a moment, just, how BB have a bathroom break? Come back in 7 minutes. We'll have this. Okay, welcome back to council chambers. We've had some conversations with our manager and with our clerk, and in response to Councillor Kavanaugh's question, we basically have, as it was identified, passed the recommendation that we have a tiered system for licensing of short-term rental accommodations. The conversation tonight that the manager had highlighted in her recommendation number one, or option number one, is that council provide clear direction on how we implement this. In our conversation tonight, we've already heard we don't want to implement it. We want to implement it based on intensity, on hosting or non-hosting, all the options. The four main options were up on one of the slides. Sorry, Nicole, could you pop up that slide again that had the most common means of tiering the short-term rental accommodations?
Oh, like in the actual presentation?
Yeah.
Slide number 9.
Slide number 9, please. Yeah.
Could you pick slide number 9, please?
So the question that the manager has asked us tonight is to clearly define the criteria that we're going to use for licensing, which we've already proved that we're going to do, the short-term rental accommodations. Indications are if you do it for intensity and recommend 60 days, below 60 days pretty much exempts everybody from the whole system, based on our manager's research and understanding. So there are intensity is fine, but her recommendation is if you want to determine that on intensity, then it drops down to 21 days. There's multiple ways of resolving the criteria issue that we're going to use for licensing. Okay, so we've already determined that we're going to do it. We already passed that motion. How are we going to implement it? If it's by intensity, manager, talk to council about what you found regarding tiered through intensification, or tiered through intensity.
Through you, Mayor Craig. So just talking when we did the consultations with the public within municipality of Kincardine, a lot of the short-term rentals were less than, 60 days would be pretty much when the summer when people rent, so 60 days would take a lot of the short-term rentals. And if council wishes to, if the issue is higher intensity rentals, then if it's 60 days or more, then that'll help achieve that. That if you get the regulations for those folks, right? If you're getting them to go through the process and pay higher fees, but if you're exempting all the rest, that's a big chunk of the short-term rentals. When we looked at the municipalities who do the days per year, it is 21 days or less, so for 3 weeks, and then 3 weeks and above, it's the higher intensity. That's the most common breakdown for the time.
So if that is the approach that council would like to take, based on the manager's research and other municipalities' experiences, 21 days provides lots of beachfront opportunity for family to show up, all sorts of things. If you want to go to a number like 60, then we are really identifying the commercial entities that are using short-term rental accommodations as a business. Councillor Hinchberger's comments about safety were correct. CAO's supported that comment. Lots of policies in place to address safety. We've included it in the budget.
Sorry.
Deputy Mayor, please.
That's not an issue, though, is it? If it's just a matter of what the tier system, right? Is it just, it's just wanting to understand that I understand that it's just now about the tier, so all the...
It's just trying to establish what the criteria is to develop the tiers. Is it if you live in the house with your guest, there's no license required? And if you have another house, regardless if it's 1 day or 365, you need a license? Is it about the number of bedrooms? Is it about the 60 days? What criteria are we going to use? That's what staff is asking, so that they know how to draft the policy. So I'm going to put you in a tough spot, because you weren't particularly in support of, but as we've realized, we have already passed direction to staff to create the bylaw. What's the criteria that you would use to identify the tiered levels? And this is just assuming that we have two. Yes, go ahead.
If option one and the establishment of the tiers that we develop through this process gets turned down, can another option presented in the report be proposed?
Yes, that's
Okay.
what a vote is for. Councillor Kavanagh.
Thanks.
Councillor Pranger, please.
Thank you, through the chair. If we are moving forward with this one way or another, then I would recommend that one of the considerations be hosted versus unhosted residences. As long as the host is on the property, like, then whether it's a secondary or in the house, I don't care, but hosted versus unhosted would be one criteria. And then I also think we should identify any exemptions we want to have, but not just the tiers.
So just for clarity, when you say hosted or unhosted, if they're hosted, they're exempt from licensing? This is the detail that we may as well provide to our manager, rather than having a policy come back and say, no, that's not what we wanted.
I think that would be the two tiers. It would be part of the definition of the two tiers, not an exemption. I think if we want to have exemptions, regardless of the tier system, in terms of like someone who's already regulated and we're duplicating effort here, they could be exempted. Like if that's an exemption we want to have, then we also have that written in to our policy.
One of the criteria is that this remains simple to administer. Simple to administer. So if there's
The meeting stuff.
there's multiple hit, like I as I commented at the start, I think the hosted versus the unhosted is for me the most sensible way to go. If it's hosted, you're exempt. If you're not hosted, everybody pays the same amount of money, whether it's one day or all year in short-term rentals. Keep this.
That's your own criteria.
Those are the only criteria. That is very similar to Lambton Shores. As I commented, that's a simple, effective way to implement the criteria. Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, I recognize we're trying to keep this simple. One of the concerns I would have with hosted versus unhosted is how it would impact the historical and ongoing use of many of the properties within our municipality, recognizing that we are a tourist and seasonal destination. So it would inherently group together someone who rents their cottage a couple of weekends a year with someone who is using a property 365 days a year at this, as if they were equivalent. And I'm not sure that the impact on our community is equivalent. So to me, it doesn't feel justifiable. Now, if you looked at hosted versus unhosted as the two tiers with the broad exemption of anybody under 60 days or 21 days or whatever the exemption wants to be, that adds complexity, but I think it's more reflective of the actual stakeholders within our community whom this will affect.
And my response is, it doesn't matter what we do, it's going to affect somebody. Councillor Pranger, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I just wanted to respond to Councillor Blackwell's statement. So my recommendation, the hosted versus unhosted be one of the criteria for the tier, does not preclude us from having a second requirement on top of that. And like, you can define your tiers however you want. So you can have a tier that has 30 requirements in it if you really want. We're not doing that. I'm kidding. But if you want to say a hosted residence that has people there less than 21 days, is this tier is $100 for your license, and unhosted over 21 days, like those can be multiple criteria in the tiers. It doesn't have to be just hosted versus unhosted. That's not what I was trying to imply.
Somebody's got to say something or we're going to be here all night. Like I can propose that we won't be here all night, we'll go home, but we won't get anything done. So if by the process of elimination, why don't we start? So can I make a motion? Is that fair? Can I do that?
You asked for someone to say something. Isn't it my motion already? There's a motion on the floor.
There is a motion, okay.
So,
Option one, so. Well, just define your criteria.
Recognizing that this is adding some complexity, mine would be Tier A is hosted and/or less than 21 days. Tier 2 is unhosted, over 21 days. Anybody that's hosting is in Tier 1. Anybody that's under 21 days is in Tier 1. Same, very simple. An or. And then anybody that's over 21 days or unhosted at all is the other tier.
Are there any questions about the proposal? Are you clear with what it says?
can I confirm what I've written?
Please confirm.
Okay, so what I have is that Tier A would be hosted in less than 21 days. And/or. So if they're hosted in more than 21 days, or if they're hosted in less than 21 days, or Tier 2 is 21 days and over and hosted. And pardon me, unhosted.
Can they get licensed versus exceptions?
No, just, is the tier, like, but they're both getting licensed, just different cost?
Tier 1 is not.
Tier 1 is unlicensed.
Yeah, it's either way, like it's 6 of one, half of the other, but you say it's a tier and they don't.
Here, maybe I'll reframe it.
Maybe I'll reframe this a little bit. Who I would like to be targeted through the licensing, not targeting is the wrong word, who I would like to capture and regulate is unhosted and/or more than 21 days. So if that is the tier and everyone else is an exemption, I am comfortable with that. If it is, which I think, I don't know. I think the impetus for me is making sure that we're regulating those who would fall into that basket.
So I'm a little thick. I just want to say this my own way so that I understand. So if I am hosting someone at my house, I am exempt from the licensing. And if I am unhosted, if there is no one there, I need to pay the licensing fee if I am unhosted, if I have a property unhosted for more 21 days and over.
Through you, so under this proposal, unhosted properties under 21 days would not be licensed.
Correct.
Okay.
So it's basically unhosted over 21 days.
Yeah. Councillor Pranger, please.
Thank you. I'd like to add an exemption.
Excuse me, so this is a friendly amendment?
I guess. I thought we were listing what we wanted the things to be.
Well, there is
so-
a motion on the floor that we're trying to address.
So we have, there's a motion on the floor, you want to amend it.
If you want to amend that proposed amendment, then If it's a friendly amendment, then we can ask for the concurrence of the mover and seconder.
Sure.
Okay.
I'd like to propose a friendly amendment to add an exemption. I can give you the exemption now if you'd like. Thank you. To exempt any business that's operating a short-term rental within the business or commercial area that's licensed that way and already undergoes their own inspections.
Okay, so I have no idea what you just said. So if you could give me an example who that is.
So there are a few that are run as a business already as part of another business. For example, West Shore brought it up, so I believe they do it. So they have their business downtown in the commercial zone. That business, because it's a business, is inspected annually. It has fire checks, has all the things, right? And they pay taxes as a business, so then to add
Not the units upstairs.
then to add extra inspections, if that's what part of this becomes, or things like that, and extra regulations on top of it to register their business as another business, because basically the license is for another business to have rentals in it, but they're already licensed as a business, then you're duplicating several things there.
No, actually, that's not a friendly amendment at all. That's an exemption from it. So is there we need a seconder for that proposed amendment? Seeing none, no. Okay? We're back to the first amendment. Is there any new questions? I think we're pretty clear with what the amendment is. No, I'm not going to ask you a question. Unless this is really different than what you've said before.
It's something I haven't asked before.
Yeah, sorry, just to touch on that, this licensing program, you would be able to cross-reference with other things. So if a business has already had an inspection, we wouldn't ask again. It would be something that they could apply. Yeah, I know we're not doing inspections, but if there was something that they were already having to provide, we wouldn't ask it again. Is that correct? Or can we put that into the bylaw?
Through you, Mayor Craig, we had in the original bylaw that we proposed that it was a reverse onus, so that they would be checking off saying they had that. So the only time is if we were doing a random, we said we would do a random check of 4 short-term rentals a year. That's where that would, yeah.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. I'm dying to go to the vote sooner or later, but just want a clarification. So we're sending this back to Lori. Lori will basically rewrite the draft bylaw, and then I'll come back here for approval or not.
Yes.
Thank you. I would recommend let's go to a vote before the end of the night. Yeah, record both.
Okay.
Okay,
So
Councillor Stewart.
what we are voting on is the clarification of option 1, which means that as the bylaw is drafted, people who are hosted do not require a license, a short-term rental accommodation license. That means hosted either in their own home or in an additional residential unit on property. The second exemption is anyone who provides unhosted accommodations but does not rent those accommodations out for more than 21 days in a calendar year. Clerk, please.
Councillor Stewart.
No.
Councillor Hinchberger.
Yes.
Councillor Williams.
No.
Councillor Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Clark.
No.
Councillor Blackwell.
Yes.
Councillor Prenger.
No.
Mayor.
Yes, but it still loses.
It's That is defeated, it's tied.
So, if I may.
Councillor Stewart, what was that recommendation that you had earlier on?
Yes, thank you very much, and through you, Chair, I don't want to kill this thing, I just think it's very complex. And what I would like to do is basically, let's leave the program, and let's go, we're going into election year, let's go ask the community, we're starting to really define it better, and we can go out and approach the community and say, this is the tiers we're looking at. So my recommendation is that we just defer this through this term and make it an election item. Thank you.
So you second that, Councillor Blackwell?
I do not.
Okay, then,
Was it?
yeah, I was.
It was? Okay, then no.
That's a motion.
Councillor Williams, yes. All in favor of the deferral?
So that fails? Yep. What are we doing?
Failed.
Yep.
We have a bylaw?
It's called gridlock.
It's gridlock, yeah.
Okay, can
So I am going to instruct the mayor and the CAO and the clerk to have a conversation, and we will present a path forward to council, perhaps at the next council meeting, and we're not going to drag it out. We're going to come to some sort of resolution as fast as we can. Please afford opinions to how we address this if you so choose with the CAO at a subsequent time, not tonight. Councillor Kavanagh, please.
So in that case, can I make a motion to defer this till the next council meeting?
There's no decision.
Through you.
Thank you for that. Procedurally, I have no authority to not do nothing, but I give you my word that we will bring something back in an expeditious fashion. We'll bring something.
You might have to veto this one and just make a decision.
We're all in a good mood now. Confused. Primary Healthcare Ad Hoc Committee update. We need a mover and seconder that we have two options, and we'll start with the first one. The council approved the recommendations as presented by the Primary Healthcare Ad Hoc Committee in Report 2026-01, moved by councillors Williams and Kavanagh. Crystal, please. Or Lori, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, through you, Mayor Craig, I'm going to start us off. So, as you know, council identified that a review was needed of the physician recruitment program in order to understand what components of the program and what role the municipality should play in the sector. So council created the primary ad hoc access committee to guide future directions of the program. And the purpose of the report today really is to provide you with that overview of the process, as well as the program and the recommendations that the ad hoc committee had coming forward. And Crystal and I are going to do a little bit of a joint tag team presentation on this, but we really just want to give you an overview of the committee's work over the last 5 meetings, and then the recommendations that they presented.
Thanks, Lori, and through you, Mayor Craig. So the Physician Recruitment and Retention Program was created, as Lori mentioned, to attract physicians and ensure access to primary care here in Kincardine. The program has been in place since 2021 and has delivered measurable success, successfully signing 4 family physicians and 1 full-time ER doctor to Kincardine so far. Municipal involvement seems increasingly necessary due to physician shortages, both nationwide and actually worldwide, population growth now and in the future, and provincial gaps in the recruitment support. So where are we at? With 11 physicians currently in the Kincardine Family Health Organization, there are approximately 15,000 attached patients. The catchment area for the Kincardine Clinic includes Huron-Kinloss, as we know, and there are an estimated 2,500 unattached residents still, with further growth anticipated. It's important to note that without the newly recruited physicians, there may have been a situation where we only had 8 family physicians caring for 12,000 people, and it could have been 5,500 people, unattached patients. Estimates show there's a minimum of 16 physicians needed to meet our current population, and by the end of 2026, there will be an estimated 12 family physicians practicing at the Hawthorne Community Clinic. An additional 5 physicians are still required. The ad hoc committee role. So council identified that a review was needed in order to understand what role the municipality should play in this sector. Healthcare is a provincial responsibility, but the impacts of healthcare gaps lands on the community. When residents can't access primary care, it shows up locally. Municipal government has felt pressured to respond to this, and that's the consequences live even if the policy isn't there. So council created the Primary Healthcare Access Ad Hoc Committee to guide future direction of the program. The committee included Mayor Craig, Councillors Williams, Councillor Kavanaugh, and was supported by staff, including the Chief Administrative Officer, the Manager of Strategic Initiatives, myself, the Physician Recruiter, and the Deputy Clerk. And next slide. Thanks, Nicole. The program review process. The ad hoc committee met 5 times between July and December 2025. The key components of their work include a program and budget review of all the components, identified stakeholders in healthcare, and heard delegations, presentations from most of the stakeholders identified, including Saugeen Shores, and finally developed recommendations to bring back in this report. Pass it over to Lori. Thanks.
Thanks, Crystal. So initially, the committee reviewed the program components and all the budget allocations in order to understand the current components and the outcomes. And through this review process of the program components, the committee identified the following as being a key component for the future of the program. So the first one was recognition that healthcare is not a municipal responsibility, but there is a role for the municipality to play, as there an urgency to ensure that everyone has access to healthcare. And that was especially noted given our current growth, but also the future growth, especially with Bruce C coming down the pipes. Advocacy was also stated as something important with the role of the municipality, which is coming up at Roma, which is awesome. But again, that should be a focus for us and a role for council. The other program components that the ad hoc group had said that the physician recruitment was not for other healthcare providers. It was just for primary healthcare providers, not for pharmacists, specialists, etc. And that really the priority of the program should focus on the recruitment efforts. So again, these were pieces that the committee had talked about as a lens as they were reviewing the program. The other thing they talked about was Hawthorne Community Clinic and locum houses should be run on a cost recovery basis. And so that was part of the discussions we had about the program, but then also in the budget allocations. The committee also identified the importance of providing housing for potential and newly signed physicians, and that any housing incentives that the municipality provides should be directed at purchases in the municipality of Kincardine. There was also interest in enlisting help from the community, and that we should seek other incentives from local businesses, so that it isn't just the municipality offering incentives, it's also other businesses. And then also checking to see if there's any ambassadors out there in the community that might help with the orientation of the new physicians coming in, that connection to the community instead of always relying on the physician recruiter. So those were the pieces that the committee first discussed, and that formed the sort of basis as they went forward in developing recommendations. So if you go to the next slide, the committee wanted to hear from key people and organizations to help them form their recommendations, and they developed an invitation as well as questions to address that they wanted to hear from delegations. And so that was it was attached to your report, the invitation, as well as the questions that the committee asked the delegations to answer. And they heard from 10 delegations, which were also listed in your report and are up on the screen. But basically, looking from the Family Health Organization, ER physicians, Family Health Team, Bruce Power, etc. So had a good conversation with each of the different delegations. And overall, what did we hear from the delegations? And there was a summary of the key themes in your report. But very, very much, and I want to mention that we kicked Crystal out of some of the meetings. It's hard with her being in the room in some ways because we're marking her own homework, but I will say overall very positive around the role of the physician recruiter and the success the program has had. But really the feedback was around the municipality being a proactive leader in addressing healthcare, and so very much a support for the program and the role that we have here at the municipality to help sort of move this work forward and have success. They also talked about the importance of turnkey clinic space for physicians, especially new physicians coming in, being able to turn their business kind of really on a dime and not have to worry about that with everything else that they have to do as they start their new business. Competitive incentives were noted as essential in rural recruitment and the competition that's out there. So I'm really sort of saying that that was an important part of the program, and really a strong enthusiasm for the residency program. Really hearing about the Western Residency Program, really seeing that this was a feather in our cap, and really something that we should be proud that's happening in our community, and that it's really going to help the success of physician recruitment. The other piece that we heard loud and clear was that housing and locum accommodations were critical. So having housing for people to come when they're trying out the community and being able to find housing very easily, and then providing housing support for new physicians was seen as being really a good thing for us for recruiting physicians. And then the last piece was the theme around community integration. And really saying, the things, the connection to the community, things like helping to find childcare, helping to find, like where's things where kids can go, their children can go, their families can sort of participate in the community, and making that connection really helps for a long-term retention. So on the slide in front of you, which actually, this is where the committee then, once they heard all the delegations, then they went through the program again a second time with that lens of the new information that they learned from the delegations. And so overall, the committee identified that the physician recruitment and retention program should continue, as it was believed to be key in the municipality's ability to recruit and retain physicians. But part of it was that there were some things that they wanted to change. And so if you see up here, those are the 10 recommendations. They follow your appendix that was in your attachment, I should say attachment 4, which is this short form document, which gives you more details in each of those different program recommendations. But I'll just give you a kind of a quick highlight. The first one is the ER support program is maintained. There was strong support for that. The turnkey clinic rent for the first year remains free. Following 1 year of tenure, physicians pay rent according to the Family Health Organization lease. So that part was supported. And then in order to offer clinic space to new physicians, it's recommended that the municipality complete a needs assessment for the space that considers options to address those future needs space. And so that needs assessment includes the current Hawthorne Community Clinic as well as other potential locations as part of that review. They recommended removing the financial support for the nurse practitioner from the program, as the family health team has received increased funding through the province, which actually was seen in the budget process, so it kind of already happened. They recommended that the mayor include $5,000 to the education program for the Rural Residency Western University program in the 2026 budget, which again happened, so that was part of the mayor's budget. And that the physician recruiter be directed to seek donations from local businesses for further program support. So again, maybe an additional piece of a role for the physician recruiter. Then there was also the recommendation for the mayor to include the $600,000 in the 2026 budget for Kincardine and Community Healthcare Foundation, and then the other piece was that a letter be sent to Huron-Kinloss requesting continued financial support towards the program, and further indicating a desire to increase the annual amount by 10% over 4 years. And so that was one of the requests, which we haven't done yet until we hear what council has to say for that for today. And that the incentive program be revised to prioritize the most pressing needs identified by the delegations. And the ad hoc committee really helped us with bucketing the incentives and really prioritizing housing as being one of those major buckets, which again focused the priorities based on what the delegations had told the committee. And that the locum houses continue to be offered as part of the incentive program, being really a key, and again, the delegation spoke to that being a key driver in getting physicians here and getting them sort of comfortable with the community, a place to stay, and then and having that opportunity with housing really makes that a lot easier. And that the final thing was that the program be renamed to healthcare access instead of physician recruitment and retention. So that's a summary of what the committee had recommended, and basically that's the overview, and I don't know if you have any questions for the committee.
I received the fulsome report. I'm going to pass it over to Councillors Williams and Kavanagh, who were valuable parts of the committee. Comments first, Councillor Williams?
Sure, thank you, through you. This was, first off, I really appreciated the opportunity to be on the committee. I mean, I learned a lot, and I mean, we provided a lot of information and resources to help us inform our decision. It was a really interesting experience for me because when I started as a counselor, I wasn't really sure what our role should be in physician recruitment. I knew it was important to the community, but I also appreciated that it technically isn't our business. And being a part of the committee, it really helped me to better understand what the need was and what the opportunity was. And I was going through the exercise over the past several months and participating in the delegations and learning more from the team. I am certain without question that if we did not do this, we will not have enough physicians because we are competing with a lot of communities and there's limited availability of doctors. And in order to remain competitive, it was made very clear to me, and it was really through this process that this program is responsible for the physicians we have. And I'm happy with how we better refined the offerings to make it more manageable, but also to make it more reasonable for taxpayers while still remaining competitive. Just two other quick points. And then similar to the investment that we made in the hospital, I really think that primary care is a critical part of our economic development portfolio. And this helps ensure that we have a healthy, vibrant community that will attract more residents and essentially retain them. So again, I'm certain that if we don't retain this program at the level that we presented, that we will fall behind. And if we fall behind, we will not catch up. Thank you.
Councillor Kavanagh? And I must admit, it was a bit like watching a yo-yo in the, not from a mental acuity perspective, but the chair is like, I need to declare conflict. Okay, I'm back. I need to declare conflict. Rory actually was very conscientious in alerting us to when his doctor's responsibility kicked in. So, but it's very helpful because
I will say through the chair, I do appreciate first this council for allowing me to participate on this. And furthermore, the staff and my fellow committee members' patience with me because there was some work to navigate between what was a conflict and what was not. However, I think as a whole, I was able to provide some insight and information that I have that otherwise wouldn't be accessible to the committee. And as a result, the good news that's coming out of this is it has largely been a success story with a few things that were tweaked and improved and always getting better as we go forward. We've gone from a place where we had 8 physicians and we were losing our 1 full-time emerge doc to we're now at 11 with two full-time emerge doctors, another physician currently taking on patients right now, and another physician scheduled to start in the coming year. Really, that is a reflection both of this community and the efforts of the program, the staff running that program, as well as the growth of our community and the success of the MCR project, broadly speaking. It allowed us to recommend a transition that you'll see, where we are no longer in the circling the drain, trying to prevent closures, whatever it takes to keep that emerge open, to a point where as a community, we are valued and seen positively enough within the medical community that we've attracted a residency program. And I wouldn't be surprised when this gets reviewed again in another 3 or 4 years. There's another step down there where we will be even better positioned with less of a draw on our resources to grow the program and continue on.
questions, comments? Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I'm not quite as positive as some of my other councillors. I think this is a catch-22. I think that we have to do it, and it's a burden on taxpayers, but we basically have to do it. When I started being a councillor last term, we had 10 doctors. So right now we have, 11? And I've seen us go up and down and up and down, and you're right. Without this program, we'd probably be around 8 or 7. But it is a costly program, and we have to recognize it. I mean, right now, I think we have $750,000 out there in loans without actually making any interest. But anyways, a couple of comments I like to make in some of this program. I don't understand this revenue contribution from Huron Kinloss. And sending them a letter over there to increase it by a little, I think that's, I mean, they have been doing $17,000 for 10 years. I think it's time that we tell them to double it. They need to compete. They have over 3,000 patients over at Hawthorne right now. We're still waiting for our 3,000 patients in our own community to get a doctor. I've been waiting 8 years. So it's unfair that our community is paying the tax dollars and they're basically getting a free ride. 17 is embarrassing. So I'd highly recommend we go to $34,000 first year. Secondly, I don't see in this program, doctors come, first year, it's about $80,000 if they take all the incentive programs. That's what it costs the taxpayers. What is their commitment on their part? How many patients do they have to take on first year? Do we have a figure? I don't see the figure anywhere in the open or closed session. Could you help me out with that? And the third thing, third thing is the assessment. You know, looking at our Hawthorne and trying to rebuild that Hawthorne, you know, having a clinic and being actually basically paid for by the taxpayers, I don't think I want to build another clinic. I think that the next clinic will have to be doctor-sponsored and maybe not municipality-sponsored. We'll keep the Hawthorne, but I'm not going to add another clinic for, you know, 3 or 4 doctors. It's just too hard on the taxpayers. So if you can answer some of those questions, I appreciate it. Thank you.
So I will answer the first one. The financial relationship that we have with here in Kinloss is not a mandatory thing at all. We can demand way more than that, and the response would not likely be favorable at all. So our approach as first off, to receive concurrence by council to even proceed with this, we need to. But it is a measured incremental increase, the way that any municipal council likes to receive notice that their contributions would like to be increased. So I think any council would prefer to receive a notice of increases that they can accommodate into their budget in fashions like this. Is it right? Is it wrong? No, but we perceive that it's better than it would have been had we not asked at all. The other question regarding the number of patients that a doctor would assume when they begin their practice, could you give us some guidance on those numbers, please, Crystal?
Through you, Mayor Craig, I can have some examples of our current contract that was drafted by a lawyer asks for full-time work in Kincardine. So not in the contracts, but originally with the last committee, it was over the 5 years, you would roster up to 1,000 patients, work 4 ER shifts a month, and be on the hospitalist schedule. Essentially, the physicians are paid per capitation. So if you roster more people, your income is higher. There isn't a physician at the clinic at the moment with less than 1,000 patients, and that's what the Medical Association deems to be about full-time. Those numbers can be different in the city where you're not required to hold 2 or 3 other roles as well. The newest physician that's just joined us through the Practice Ready Ontario program has been able to access an income stabilization program through the ministry. They actually have quotas per month of rostering 75 people, 50 people per month the first 3 months, and then 75 people each month for the rest of the year to get to 825. And that's what they deem possible. It has been a struggle, I will tell you, the amount of paperwork and follow-up and specialists and all of the packaging of each human that you have to care for that may have been unseen for quite some time. That's it. Yeah.
Question, follow-up.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. I'm a little bit concerned about, you know, it's great to have, at the end of 5 years, you have to have 1,000 patients, which I agree with. But does that mean you could start with 200 and then go 300 and then go 400? I mean, don't you think you should sort of define it a little more, what year one? I mean, year one is the biggest cost for us. It's over $80,000. Don't you think we should have a minimum of 500 patients the first year? And can't you put that in the contract?
If you don't mind, I'll defer to Councillor Kavanaugh, who might have some experience with rostering patients.
Thank you very much. And just for a point of transparency, I can't talk about the clinic issue, but hopefully one of my colleagues is able to shed some light on that. From a broader business standpoint, we see the bulk of the bigger costs as a municipality because you're dealing with someone who is transitioning from essentially a student life into setting up a business and growing. Realistically, if everyone could come in and have a fully functional roster at the beginning, they would, and some physicians do choose that route. If there's a retiring physician, you come in, you assume their whole roster, and the reason is that because that maximizes their income in year one. Oftentimes, if you're building a practice, the amount of time and effort required into processing that paperwork and dealing with the ministry and everything and coming online means that you won't be able to take on more than a couple hundred in one given year if you're building from scratch. It's also why I am incredibly grateful towards the family health team that functions out of the basement under their director, Pam Rance, because they're currently providing a way forward with a new local list that is allowing for that option of quicker registration. There were times where, and Walkerton has done it, and I've done it when we arrived, where you don't have the money or resources to make something like that happen. So you are literally opening a lineup and saying, come and line up, because that's what you can afford to get your business up and off the ground. It would be wonderful if everyone could say, day one, I'm going to have 800 people and go. But you still have to onboard them and learn them and make that functional. So realistically, it's you onboard as much as you can in year one, from practical and given environmental circumstances, and from there you ramp up to that number as quickly as possible.
Sounds similar to many other businesses. Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, through you. I just wanted to respond to the third question related to the clinic. From my understanding through the conversations that we had at the committee is a review would be a broader review about even overall operating models and ownership and all of that. So the idea is that the review would look at, the current operating space under the municipality, what other models might look like, how we might grow. So it's more of a more fulsome review, really looking at, what the best and most feasible and most practical and most cost efficient and effective model is for having a clinic.
Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I wish we had this much passion, discussion, and desire to improve things as we did for housing, which is a provincial priority under the Municipal Act, and healthcare, which currently is not. So just to help inform my decision on this in here, all in, does the proposal represent an increase in contributions by the municipality for an endeavor which isn't a provincial priority under the Municipal Act, whereas housing is, or is it roughly status quo and just a redistribution?
Through you, Mayor Craig, a lot of that would be in the closed section.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you, through you. Thank you to the committee for their hard work and to the staff and all those who contributed to reviewing this. I know I had many wonderful conversations with the late Doug Kennedy about this program. It was very near and dear to his heart, so I'm glad to see there's been some analysis and it's something that's being recommended to continue. I actually kind of have a follow-up question to a couple of things that have been raised. So one comment I'll say is I quite agree with Councillor Stewart that the contribution from here in Kinloss, when we look at the overall program, is quite small compared to the number of individuals accessing the service. There's also been commentary about a local list of rostering patients. Is there, I don't know how to say this that isn't an uncomfortable way, but is there a way to prioritize or ration out spots that are based on contributions to the program, or is that getting into unethical healthcare decisions?
That's a good question.
Councillor Kavanaugh.
So in discussions when that list was being set up, that was brought forward, broadly speaking, towards the municipality, but the time under the administration of the previous CEO, there was no desire to take on a municipal list and set a priority system here. as it stands, the catchment area of the Family Health Organization extends beyond our political borders, and that's the information they collect.
Okay, sorry, so just to follow up, the physicians that we are paying the lion's share to recruit are taking from a list from another organization, and if the municipality had its own list, we could then perhaps not even accept a contribution from here in Kinloss and keep it to our own list. Although that's not what I want to do, but I would say that I do agree that I think the request needs to be higher to here in Kinloss. I recognize what you're saying in terms of planning and but the incremental increase is to me quite low. I would go back actually and look at the overall cost of the program from when that contribution started, is what is the percentage of that program, and then look at how the program has grown today and propose something that's a similar percentage.
Look at that. Getting along.
Councillor Williams, please.
Sorry, through you. I'm just thinking through that. I don't know if this is an option, but maybe another option is looking at on a percentage of residents that use it or number of based on total. That would be interesting to assess.
Sounds a little bit like a recreation agreement. Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you very much, and through you, Chair, I don't quite understand all the OHIP and the way it all works, but if it takes that long to onboard, I mean, I just got a call the other day. Unfortunately, it was due for my mother, who was actually getting a doctor, you know, and she's been waiting about 5 years. I thought, well, I've been waiting 8, but I guess my mother, and to be honest with you, I'd rather have my mother had a doctor, and she did. But anyways, another question is, if it takes so long to onboard, why don't we do it this way? And I'm not sure if it's even, if you have a select of like 11 doctors, couldn't each one of those doctors sort of give 50 patients that are already basically in the system on board before just taking new ones from a list from the family? I mean, there's got to be something here. I really, I don't want such a burden, but you know, when you're spending that kind of money and it's all up front, I really like to see as fast as we can get those patients through the door into the doctor. So maybe it's a bit outside and a bit inside, and they all sort of share that, and we can move forward a little quicker. Because, you know, it's great to have 1,000 patients, but 5 years is a long time. I just think that, you know, it's too slow.
Would that be a responsibility of the family health team to try and figure out the dynamics of that, which is beyond our pay grade at this point? So response?
Through you, Mayor Craig, just to add some clarity, and just because there's such interest in it, the Kincardine Family Health Team is currently looking at helping roster patients faster, using some of their nurse practitioner and RN support and some of the PCAP funding they just received to call the people on their list and try to bundle them into a package, because it takes so much time for each one. So there is some light at the end of the tunnel, where it would be hopefully for the next physician coming in August that he would be able to roster a little bit quicker, because it is important.
Okay, so we have a motion here on the floor that council approve the recommendations as presented by the Primary Healthcare Ad Hoc Committee. All in favor of the motion? Have we?
Yeah, the recommendation, this is just for the 2% here in Kinloss, though? This is for the recommendation to ask.
These are the recommendations that were presented up here, which included the presentation to here in Kinloss Council too.
No, I want to recommend increasing.
You're aware that there is an option here. I'm not sure. Is it on? Would you like to make a friendly amendment?
I don't think, I think a separate motion. I think it's.
Oh, okay, two separate motions. If you come back, I would I would allow a change to that.
The things, but then I'll have a separate motion, except, okay.
So I'm going to suggest, actually, in my script here, there's a second motion. The council approved the recommendations as presented by the Primary Healthcare Ad Hoc Committee, including the following recommendations. I know what it says, but including is a more positive way to say it. So it was Stelina and Rory. And the recommendation is that,
I would like either the committee or staff to explore potential increase in the request to hearing Kinloss. I'm not directing what that would be because I don't have knowledge, but I think that it should be more than what's presented in this recommendation.
is there a seconder for that amendment? Okay, so that's kind of vague, but we will bring that report, but we will bring that, that research and discovery back to council for approval
The three of you come by.
subsequent to this.
So are you doing this as an amendment, or are you doing this as a friendly amendment?
They have to agree if it's a friendly amendment, yes.
So if they don't agree,
then it's an amendment. Then it's an amendment. Right.
Do you agree, are you willing to support that friendly amendment? Okay.
we'll just vote.
There we go. So we have a motion, the council approve the recommendations, including the amendment. We will bring back what the best we can do. It might not be as perfect as you want, but it'll be the best we can do. It will be considered again. Okay? All in favor of the motion? Anyone opposed? That's carried. That's good. Consideration of bylaws. We need a mover and seconder that the 2026 interim taxation bylaw be deemed to be read a first, second, third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw 2026-01. Whew. Moved by Councillor Stewart and Hinchberger. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. 2026 current operating borrowing bylaw. We need a mover and seconder that the 2026 current operating borrowing bylaw be deemed to be read a first, second, and third time, finally passed and numbered as 2026-02 by Councillor William and Blackwell. All in favor? That's carried. Authorize Bruce County to collect dedicated gas tax funds. We need a mover and seconder that the authorize Bruce County to collect dedicated gas tax funds bylaw be deemed to be read a first, second, and third time, finally passed, numbered as bylaw 2026-03, moved by Councillor Hinchberger and Kavanaugh. Discussion? Councillor Stewart?
Thank you, and through your chair, how much are the gas tax? I mean, I didn't see it in the report. Did I miss it?
It used to be that Hanover was the administrator of the gas tax that funded SMART.
That wasn't his question.
Dollar amount?
Oh, 700 and some odd thousand dollars.
Okay, thank you.
Any more discussion? All in favor? That's carried. We need a mover and seconder that the 127 Lake Street and 64 Victoria Street encroachment agreement bylaw be deemed to be read a first, second, and third time. Finally passed, numbered as bylaw 2026-04, moved by Councillor Stewart and Deputy Mayor Clark. All in favor, or do you discussion?
Just a comment. Just a quick comment. Thank you. In Buchanan, 100 years old. We're going to run into this a lot. Any beach community that's 100 years old. So thank you. Probably everyone doesn't seem to know where to build anymore. They're always building, and the last one was right off the property completely. So thank you for your consideration for this. Thank you.
All in favor? That's carried. We need a mover and seconder that the corporate resources for election purposes policy bylaw be deemed to be read a first, second, third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw 2026-05. Councillor Kavanaugh and Blackwell, all in favor? And that's carried. Consent agenda are considered routine. Any that would like to be withdrawn for consideration either tonight or a subsequent meeting. So I didn't know what the call letters were for Alpha 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 because there's so many of.
Which one?
All right, I'm just moving on to the motion here. Yes, Councillor Blackwell.
I just wanted to recognize our MPP's letter about the proposed Conservation Authority boundaries and her support of the local proposals and need for a Huron County, Lake Huron shoreline specific one. So I just appreciate her responding to local councils and conservation authorities with that letter.
So we need a mover and seconder. The council approve the recommendations contained in the consent agenda dated January 14, 2026, and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. Moved by Councillors Hinchberger and Stewart. All in favor? That's carried. Member of Council, general announcements. Councillor Blackwell.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year to everybody. I wanted to give a shout out to Keene, the Kincardine Environmental Action Network. They held their first repair cafe that I hear went swimmingly. I know Councillor Kavanaugh was there. So thank you to all the volunteers who put that on and are helping us keep things out of the landfill. I also want to thank everybody that showed up to our consultation event on Monday night about the McPherson Inclusive Playground. I think it sparked some really great conversations. I really enjoyed the conversations that I had with some of our younger members about their favorite elements of the park, and I think there was some really great feedback gathered.
Councillor Pranker.
No comment.
Councillor Stewart.
Just FYI, we're actually putting on a Winterfest in February in the town of Tiverton, or the village of Tiverton. So that's on the family long weekend, so we'll give you more details later. But we're planning to do it once again.
Councillor Hinchberger.
I have no announcements tonight.
Councillor Williams.
No announcements.
Councillor Kavanaugh.
Just one announcement that hasn't been covered already. On December 22nd, and this ties into the council priorities, the land purchase was approved for the new Kincardine District Senior School.
It's different than 2019?
Deputy Mayor.
No announcements.
CAO.
No announcements tonight.
And we just received notice that the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority annual general meeting is all by Zoom tomorrow. There's concern about the weather anyway. All right. I need a mover and seconder. The council move into closed session pursuant to Section 239 of the Municipal Act as amended for the purpose of considering the closed session minutes dated December 3 and December 10, position plan, procedure, criteria, instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality, specifically primary healthcare ad hoc committee incentive package, position plan, procedure, criteria, instruction about a public relations firm, and personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees or potential appointees to a local board, specifically the Heritage Kincardine member. Further, that council return to regular open meeting upon completion. Moved by councillors Kavanaugh and Stewart. All in favor? That's carried.
We're not going to take a break, are we?
No.